Welcome to the Detective Storyteller, your ultimate destination for thrilling tales of mystery, deception, and intrigue. From cunning detectives to masterful spies, each story will keep you guessing until the very end. Like, share, and subscribe to join our growing community of mystery enthusiasts. Now, let's unravel today's case. A Scandal in Bohemia is the first short story in the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes collection, written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It was first published in the Strand magazine in July 1891. It's also the third overall work, featuring the fictional detective Sherlock Holmes. The story is notable for introducing the character of Irene Adler, who is one of the most notable female characters in the Sherlock Holmes series, despite appearing in only one story. Doyle ranked A Scandal in Bohemia 5th in his list of his 12 favourite Holmes stories. A Scandal in Bohemia follows the brilliant detective Sherlock Holmes as he is hired by the King of Bohemia to retrieve a compromising photograph from the clever and resourceful Irene Adler. The story showcases a battle of wits between Holmes and Adler, filled with cunning, disguise, and intrigue. Holmes's ingenuity is put to the test as he faces an adversary who proves to be his equal in intelligence and resourcefulness. Let's get into the story. It was a brisk March evening in London, and the city was cloaked in a thick fog that cast an ethereal glow from the gas lamps lining the streets. The cobblestone roads echoed with the clattering of carriages, and the distant hum of conversation filled the air as Londoners went about their business. The bustling city, with its ever-present energy, seemed to pulse with life, even as the fog added an element of mystery to the surroundings. Amidst this vibrant backdrop, at 221B Baker Street, a world of intrigue and mystery was about to unfold. The cosy sitting room of the famous detective Sherlock Holmes was a haven from the cold, foggy night outside. The room was filled with cluttered bookshelves, comfortable armchairs, and the familiar scent of Holmes's pipe tobacco, creating an atmosphere of warmth and intellectual stimulation. Dr. John Watson, recently married and now living apart from his old friend, had paid a visit to Holmes. Watson was a distinguished man in his 40s, with a kind face framed by a neatly trimmed moustache. He was dressed in a well-tailored suit, his steady demeanour reflecting his background as a military doctor and his unwavering loyalty to Holmes. Holmes, ever the enigmatic figure, was in a state of heightened anticipation. His sharp, hawk-like features were illuminated by the glow of the fireplace, and his piercing blue eyes were filled with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. He was dressed in a dark green smoking jacket, his lean frame exuding an air of casual elegance. As Watson settled into his chair, he noticed a letter in Holmes's hand. Holmes handed the letter to Watson with a sense of urgency. "Watson, my dear fellow, read this. It promises to be an intriguing case." Watson took the letter and began to read. The missive was elaborate, written in a fine flowing script, and bore the seal of the Royal House of Bohemia. The writer, who identified himself as Count von Kram, an agent of the King of Bohemia, sought Holmes's assistance in a matter of great delicacy and urgency. The following evening, the arrival of a masked visitor at Baker Street added an air of aristocracy to the already intriguing situation. The visitor was tall and imposing, dressed in a fine cloak with a high collar that concealed much of his face. His manner and bearing exuded a sense of regal authority. Once seated in the sitting room, the visitor removed his mask, revealing the regal features of Wilhelm Gottsreich, Sigismund von Ormstein, King of Bohemia. His eyes, filled with a mixture of desperation and determination, met Holmes's piercing gaze. "Mr. Holmes," the king began, his voice tinged with urgency, "I am in urgent need of your help. I must retrieve a photograph that could jeopardize my impending marriage to a Scandinavian princess. The photograph is in the possession of Irene Adler, a woman who once held my heart." Holmes listened intently, his sharp mind already whirring with possibilities. The King of Bohemia's situation was delicate and fraught with potential scandal. The photograph, if made public, could have dire consequences for the king's marriage and reputation. "Tell me more about Miss Adler," Holmes prompted, his eyes never leaving the king's face. The king described Irene Adler as a woman of extraordinary beauty and intelligence, a former opera singer who had retired and taken residence in London. She was clever and resourceful, and it was clear that the king held her in high regard, despite the predicament she now posed. Irene Adler's background painted a picture of a woman who had navigated the world of high society with grace and poise. Her intelligence and resourcefulness had earned her respect, and her beauty had captivated many, including the King of Bohemia. She was a formidable adversary, and Holmes knew that retrieving the photograph would require all of his cunning and skill. Holmes's reputation as the foremost detective in London had reached the highest echelons of society, and it was this reputation that had led the King of Bohemia to seek his assistance. The king's dilemma was a matter of international importance, and only someone of Holmes's caliber could be entrusted with such a task. Holmes's mind worked tirelessly, formulating a plan to retrieve the photograph. The stage was set for a battle of wits between the brilliant detective and the resourceful Irene Adler. The adventure that lay ahead would test Holmes's ingenuity and reveal the depths of his respect for a woman who would forever be known as the woman in his eyes. Holmes, ever the master of disguise and subterfuge, devised a meticulous plan to retrieve the photograph. The stakes were high, and Holmes knew that a misstep could jeopardize the entire operation. He spent the next few days gathering information and preparing for the task at hand. His keen mind analyzed every detail, formulating a strategy that combined observation, deception, and quick thinking. Holmes transformed himself into a humble groom, complete with shabby clothing and a convincing air of civility. His attire was that of a working-class man. A threadbare coat, worn trousers, and scuffed boots. He wore a cap pulled low over his eyes, effectively masking his sharp features. The transformation was so thorough that even Watson, who was privy to the plan, found it hard to recognize his friend. Holmes positioned himself near Irene Adler's residence, a charming townhouse situated in a fashionable part of London. The area was bustling with activity, and Holmes took note of every detail. The comings and goings of servants, the frequent visitors, and the neighbors who seemed to take an interest in Adler's affairs. He observed her daily routine with meticulous precision, noting the exact times she left and returned, and the people she interacted with. The streets outside Irene Adler's residence were a hive of activity. The air was filled with the sounds of vendors hawking their wares, children playing, and the occasional rumble of carriages passing by. Holmes seized the opportunity to stage a commotion that would serve as the perfect diversion for his plan. He arranged for a group of ruffians to engage in a mock brawl right outside Adler's home. The orchestrated chaos drew a crowd, and the air was filled with shouts and exclamations. People stopped to watch, their attention fully captured by the spectacle. In the midst of the chaos, Holmes, disguised as the groom, was injured and carried into Adler's home by concerned bystanders. The ruse allowed him to gain entry into the house without arousing suspicion. Inside, the atmosphere was one of refined elegance. The walls were adorned with tasteful artwork, and the air was filled with a faint, delicate scent of perfume. Holmes, feigning injury, observed every detail with his characteristic precision. The furnishings were of the highest quality, and the decor reflected Irene Adler's impeccable taste. The room was bathed in soft, warm light from ornate lamps, creating an inviting and sophisticated ambiance. As Irene Adler herself attended to him, Holmes noted her grace and composure. She was dressed in a stylish gown, her dark hair elegantly styled. Her eyes, keen and intelligent, seemed to take in everything at once. Holmes's admiration for her intellect and poise grew, even as he executed his plan. With a discreet signal, Holmes's accomplice, strategically positioned outside, threw a smoke rocket into the room through an open window. The sudden burst of smoke caused a momentary panic, and the room was filled with cries of alarm. Seizing the opportunity, Holmes observed Adler's instinctive reaction. In the midst of the confusion, she rushed to a hidden compartment behind a painting, revealing the photograph's location. Holmes's keen eyes took note of the exact position and mechanism of the hidden compartment. The following morning, the familiar and cozy atmosphere of 221B Baker Street was filled with an air of anticipation. The fog had lifted, revealing a bright but chilly day outside. Holmes and Watson, both dressed in their customary attire, sat in the sitting room, awaiting Irene Adler's response. Holmes, in his dark green smoking jacket, appeared calm and composed, his sharp features betraying none of the tension he felt. Watson, in his well-tailored suit, was equally composed, though his curiosity was palpable. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the morning light, and the scent of Holmes's pipe tobacco lingered in the air. The crackling of the fireplace provided a soothing backdrop to the tense atmosphere. As they waited, Holmes's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and possibilities, his keen intellect analyzing every detail of the previous night's events. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and Mrs. Hudson, their landlady, entered with a letter. The envelope was of fine quality, and the handwriting on it was elegant and precise. Holmes took the letter with a sense of urgency, his piercing blue eyes focused on the contents. As he opened the letter, Watson watched closely, his own heart beating faster in anticipation. The letter read, "My dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, you really did it very well. You took me in completely. Until after the alarm of fire, I had not a suspicion. But then I realized how I had betrayed myself. I have been warned against you for a long time. I will leave England for good and keep the photograph only as a safeguard. I remain, dear Mr. Holmes, very truly yours, Irene Adler." Holmes's eyes sparkled with genuine admiration as he read the note. "She is indeed a remarkable woman," he mused, his voice filled with respect. "The king has nothing to fear, and I have gained a worthy adversary." Watson, intrigued and impressed by Adler's cunning, remarked, "She managed to outwit even you, Holmes. That is no small feat." Holmes nodded, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "I must admit, Watson, she has earned my respect. Her intelligence and resourcefulness are truly exceptional." When the King of Bohemia arrived later that day to hear the outcome, he was both relieved and impressed by Holmes's handling of the situation. The king, tall and regal in his bearing, was dressed in a fine cloak and exuded an air of authority. His eyes, however, reflected a deep sense of gratitude. "Mr. Holmes, you have done me a great service," the king began, his voice filled with relief. "Irene Adler will no longer be a threat to my marriage. How can I ever repay you?" Holmes, in a rare display of sentiment, declined the king's offer of a valuable ring. Instead, he requested the photograph of Irene Adler as a memento. "Your Majesty, I require no reward. I only ask for the photograph of Miss Adler as a token of my appreciation for her remarkable qualities." The king, taken aback by Holmes's modest request, agreed. "You have my gratitude, Mr. Holmes. You have shown great wisdom and understanding." In the end, A Scandal in Bohemia remains a timeless tale of intellect and cunning, showcasing the brilliant mind of Sherlock Holmes and the remarkable resourcefulness of Irene Adler. The story's intricate details and suspenseful twists captivate readers, drawing them into a world of intrigue and mystery, where the battle of wits between two formidable adversaries leaves a lasting impression. As Holmes and Watson reflected on the case, the room was filled with a sense of accomplishment and mutual respect. The adventure had tested their abilities and revealed the depths of human intelligence and cunning. Irene Adler, though now gone, had left an indelible mark on both their lives. Holmes's final words on the matter captured the essence of the story. "In my eyes, she eclipses and predominates all women. She has beaten me, Watson. She has beaten me." Thank you for watching. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, hit the like button and share it with fellow mystery lovers. Subscribe to the Detective Storyteller for more gripping tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss a clue. Check out another thrilling mystery right here. Until next time, keep your magnifying glass handy and your curiosity alive.